But Curtis, people know about this very public, long-standing feud that you've had with Sean Combs. So what brought you to this project?
Well,
was there anything that surprised you when you were watching the footage?
No, that didn't surprise me at all.
How did you?
But Curtis, people know about this very public, long-running feud you've had with Sean Combs. So, what brought you to this project? Well, I just want to make great television. I like creating things that are compelling and engaging. I actually started working on this project about 5 months before I connected with Alex. I knew she had the artistic integrity needed to make it something special. There's an old-school approach to production that Quincy Jones used to talk about. Find the best bass player, fly in the best keyboardist, bring together the most talented people you can find, and the result is usually incredible. I take that same approach to television. You find the right people, put them together, and let them do what they do best. You really apply that philosophy to everything you do. That's right. As I mentioned, the series includes never-before-seen footage from the days leading up to his arrest. Was there anything in that footage that surprised you? I think it's rare to see someone who is under such intense public scrutiny in such an unfiltered way. At that point, all eyes were on him. Watching what turned out to be his final days of freedom was fascinating, especially seeing what seemed most important to him. You hear conversations with his attorneys and members of his team. Here's someone known for building brands and shaping public perception, and it was interesting to watch how much thought he was giving to how he was being viewed in the days leading up to his arrest and indictment. What also stood out was how relaxed he appeared at times. But then you see new lawsuits coming in, and you get his real-time reaction to those developments. When we first saw the footage, some of those moments were genuinely startling. Was there anything that surprised you personally? Not really, Curtis replied. I've known him. Those behaviors didn't surprise me. What surprised me was that he allowed it all to be filmed. That raises an obvious question. How did you get the footage, and do you know why it was recorded in the first place? Alex smiled. I'm a journalist. I'm not revealing my sources. The room laughed. But I will say that having someone like 50 involved probably made certain things easier to obtain. It fit naturally into the world we were exploring. Because when you watch the footage, there are moments where you wonder whether he even realizes how much he's revealing. He's having candid conversations with his team. At one point, he's clearly focused on changing public perception. Can you talk more about that? I think it helps to remember that this is someone who spent years being comfortable in front of cameras. He was a reality star. For much of his life, there always seemed to be a camera nearby. When you have that kind of power, there's often an assumption that you'll be able to shape the final product. You can edit things. You can remove what you don't like and keep what you do. There's actually a moment in the final episode where he says that everything is about controlling your narrative. To me, that says a lot about who Sean Combs is, or at least who he wants people to believe he is. What became interesting was figuring out when he was performing for the camera and when he became so focused on what was happening around him that he forgot the camera was even there. And there were moments where he was reaching out for help. Absolutely. When people hear allegations through the media, there's often confusion about what's true and what isn't. This footage gives viewers an opportunity to see what was actually happening from his perspective in real time. The footage also shows Combs greeting supporters in Harlem. I've been out in the streets with the people, he says. I need some hand sanitizer. I've been hugging everybody. You also included a moment where he returns to the car afterward and makes a comment about feeling dirty. As a public figure yourself, you've seen those interactions with fans. Was that scene included because it revealed something about his character? Exactly, Curtis said. What are the odds that somebody says something like that on camera? That felt like one of those moments where he forgot he was being recorded. He gets back in the car and says he needs to sanitize himself because he feels dirty. That's the kind of moment that tells you something. The 4-part series also features 2 jurors from Combs' trial speaking publicly for the first time. They discuss the mixed verdict that found him guilty on 2 prostitution-related charges, while acquitting him of racketeering and sex trafficking charges. One juror described Combs and Cassie as 2 people in love, while another emphasized that domestic violence was not one of the charges being considered. You spoke directly with jurors, the interviewer noted. Did anything stand out about how they viewed the case? I think they genuinely believe they made the correct decision, Alex said. They seemed comfortable with the conclusions they reached. But one of the goals of the series is to invite viewers to ask questions. In a case that receives this much media attention before, during, and after the trial, what factors shape people's decisions? Who receives the benefit of the doubt? From what we observed, Sean Combs appeared to receive that benefit. Curtis added, the government came at him aggressively. You had agencies from Miami, Los Angeles, and New York conducting raids. When people see that, they assume something extremely serious has happened. You also spoke with people who declined interviews with other media outlets, but agreed to sit down with you. Why do you think that happened? Curtis laughed. Probably because they know I'm not afraid of it. They know I'll let people tell their stories without backing away from uncomfortable truths. Some people would argue that this project is driven more by your history with Sean Combs than by a desire to give alleged victims a platform. How do you respond to that? It's been 20 years. The issue was always that he made me uncomfortable with certain things he said. But it never became physical. Nothing happened between us. It wasn't that kind of situation. Cassie does not appear in the documentary, although her story plays a major role throughout the series. How did you approach portraying that relationship? The interviewer asked. Before answering that, Alex said, I think it's important to point out that the series doesn't only feature people who disliked Sean or had grievances against him. There are also people who still consider him a friend, even family. I think many of them participated because they felt they would finally have an opportunity to fully tell their stories. We spent a lot of time talking before any cameras started rolling. People realized we weren't just looking for shocking headlines or sensational details. We wanted to tell a complete story. Not everyone involved had allegations to share. That made the project much broader than simply one accusation after another. So when it comes to Cassie, do you view her as a victim? I do, Curtis said. She was around 18 or 19 when this began. Over time, people can become conditioned to situations they never expected to be in. Alex agreed. Without having her direct interview, it was important to include perspectives from people who witnessed parts of that relationship. I wanted her truth to remain part of the fabric of the story as much as possible. It was also important to remind viewers how young she was when she met Sean Combs. When a trial focuses on events from 15 or 20 years ago, people often forget who someone was at that point in their life. Today she's married, she's a mother, and she's in a completely different place. We also explored stories from other women who were part of his orbit during that era, including people connected to making the band. Certain patterns and techniques weren't exclusive to Cassie. That was important to highlight because different people absorb those experiences in different ways. Alex continued, one thing that really stood out to me was the amount of empathy the public showed for his children. During the trial, there was constant discussion about what his daughters were hearing as testimony described disturbing events. People understandably showed them grace because of their age. But Cassie was around that same age when she first met him. At a certain point, the story becomes bigger than Sean Combs or Cassie. It raises questions about how we, as a public, process these situations. What role do we play in shaping the narrative? I think that's one of the larger themes of the series. Do you think hip-hop culture was on trial as much as Sean Combs was? Not at all, Curtis answered. If nobody speaks up, people start assuming the culture accepts that kind of behavior. Silence gets interpreted as approval. I didn't want an entire culture to be judged because of one person's actions. So, what is your overall intention with this series? I wanted to provide a fuller picture, Alex said. The people who participated helped create a story with complexity and nuance. In many ways, the series asks more questions than it answers. It was important to both of us to protect the culture of hip-hop. Too often, projects like this end up reducing an entire culture to the actions of one individual. Sean Combs contributed a great deal to hip-hop, regardless of the allegations he continues to face. I hope viewers come away understanding that stories like this are layered. There's often far more beneath the surface than people initially realize. And Curtis, what's your hope for the project? I hope people watch it and enjoy it. Do you think the jury got it right? Sure. I trust the system. He'll probably be home in a couple of years. He'll be fine. Was there anyone you really wanted to interview but couldn't? Sean Combs, Alex said immediately. He was always the missing piece. Because of the footage we obtained and the amount of archival material included, you still feel his presence throughout the series. You get a sense of his personality in a way that goes beyond photographs and headlines. But from the very beginning, getting him to sit down for an interview was the ultimate goal. I have a lot of questions. What would you ask him? I'd want to know more about his upbringing, his school years, and the friendships that helped shape Bad Boy from the beginning. I'd want to hear his perspective now, looking back on everything. At this point, was it all worth it? Is there anything he would have done differently? And if Sean Combs watches this series, what do you think he'll feel? Curtis smiled. I think he'll say, wow, this is amazing. This is the best documentary I've seen in a long time. He may disagree with parts of it, but he knows the truth. And I think he'll recognize the truth when he sees it.